Hey guys, welcome back to the UNCOMMODiFiED podcast. I'm Tim Windsor and I will not be your host today. Actually, I will be, a third wheel on a fiery chariot. Let's call it that way, a third wheel on a fiery chariot. And you'll understand what that means soon because this is going to be a fiery episode, I guarantee you. Now, for those of you watching by YouTube, you can see that I have two amazing women with me today, and one of them is my partner in business and my colleague and the person who fundamentally makes me better most days when I work with my clients, and that's Amanda Macdougall. Amanda, thanks for hosting today's show, by the way. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Tim.
Awesome. No, so a couple of things about Amanda just before we get going. You'll remember Amanda if you've been listening to the podcast. So in episode 53 and episode 8, so at the beginning and then down the journey, Amanda and I did some episodes together. In episode 8, we drank some wine together, as we sometimes do when we get together, Amanda, and we talked about the idea of red wine in the real world of women leaders. And that was a fascinating discussion. By the way, before you went consulting full-time, you were still working full-time at that time. So if you haven't caught that episode, do me a favor, you should catch it, episode 8. And then episode 53, a brilliant episode entitled Management Opportunity, a fantastic promotion or a fundamental career change. That was a brilliant episode around the idea that if you're offered a management position, it's a career change. It just isn't a promotion. And if you don't see it that way, there's some fundamental problems that happen for you and your employer. Great episode. If you haven't caught it, you should. Now, let's get to today's episode. It's an UNCORK conversation, and typically if we were doing that at night, we might uncork a bottle of wine. At least I would. My guest sometimes doesn't, but I would. But today, this is the afternoon, and because of the context of the show, we're drinking something different today. Amanda, what will we be drinking together today?
Yes, well, actually, I gave the choice to Leslie,
Okay.
and Leslie has suggested to us that one of her beverages of choice right now is lemon water, but not just lemon water, warm lemon water. So that's what I'm drinking. Leslie, that's what you've got, right?
It's what I've got. I'm very excited, but it's very delicious, very, warming when it's getting cold. Love it.
Yeah.
It's a way to go. And I have lemon ginger tea. So I'm turning over a new leaf today, a tea leaf, lemon ginger tea.
Awesome. Thanks, Tim.
Take it away, Amanda.
All right. Well, I am super excited to get to introduce Leslie Gordon Christie today for our conversation. We're going to have a conversation that's focused around the pivot and pivoting from stability to following a dream and pivoting when the world throws curveballs at you like COVID. We often love the idea of being uncommodified, but how do you really break free from those chains of routine, stability, sameness to actually become uncommodified? So I thought of Leslie immediately when we were talking about this topic because Leslie has uncommodified herself. She's the creator of the Buff Mom, BUFFnation, and Delish by Design programs. They all help women unlock their infinite potential. She's a certified personal trainer with over 20 years of experience. She does group fitness instruction. She has culinary nutrition specialty, and she's a mindset coach. So she's worked alongside some of the best people in the industry. And really, what I'm excited about with Leslie is I've watched her, position herself to create vision, breaking through negative beliefs, replacing them with positive thoughts and habits that really help to lead, in most of the time, women in healthy lifestyle changes. But before Leslie did this amazing work, she was an anchor and a reporter on Canada's largest private network, CTV News. CTV, more than just the news, but you were on the news. And aside from her television work, she was also the associate editor of Oxygen magazine. So, Leslie had this big developed career in journalism and has pivoted into a whole new area. And that's where I ran into Leslie. So, wow, Leslie, when we talk about pivots, your life and your career is a pivot.
Oh my
God. And I met you as you were emerging on your first pivot. I was trying to get healthy after having my third child and joined you with, at the time, the Buff Mom, and got to see you for real. Had a positive mindset and just affecting change in people's lives. So you came to mind as someone who just is really amazing at uncommodifying. So that's me telling you all about my experience with Leslie. But Leslie, tell us a bit about yourself. Who is Leslie Gordon Christie? What are you passionate about?
Oh my gosh. Okay. So, really, I am passionate about helping people transform their lives. And I go to it with the approach of mindset first. So, we do an internal transformation. I know in my life, that's what really, really helped me. As you mentioned, I had about more than a decade career in media. And I look back on it now, and it seems like a lifetime ago. Life just seems so different. But a lot of the transformation that I needed to go through, I used a lot of those skills that I learned through the media that allowed me to help, as you say, pivot or go to the next chapter. But for me, it was just always about inspiring and uplifting people. And I think, at different times in our lives, we realize the career path we're on, we're maybe not doing what we love to do. And so, that's what really led to the pivot for me.
Wow. So when you decided to do that, to take that leap from your
Yes.
day job, follow that passion, owning your own business, what were the signals that it was time to make that change? How did you know?
Yeah, I think it's after I had my first son, Carter. Things just, and maybe, other professional women listening to this with kids can relate. Your life really changes. It's not, your career is different. You're now responsible for this little being, and everything that you're doing, you want to make sure that you're doing the right things, and you're inspiring and you're uplifting. And I was finding that, I did many different jobs over the years in broadcasting. You mentioned, I was in the magazine, then I went on to TV, but I was finding with TV, a lot of the things that I was doing, got harder and harder to do. When I first started as a journalist, it was exciting to go out to follow the latest story and to get interviews with, say there was an accident or there was an election. It was really exciting. And then as I had kids, it suddenly changed, and it became a lot harder, especially dealing with tragedy or reporting on health issues, reporting on serious stories. It became a lot to take, and I was taking all of that home, and I was really internalizing it. And I would get really affected by everything that I was covering day to day. And I'd be thinking about it in my mind. I'd be going to sleep with CNN. I was becoming obsessed with the news. I wasn't clear, and I was becoming kind of ungrounded, if that makes sense, from my true nature. And so that's when I kind of decided, okay, something needs to change here. I wasn't sure what it was. I thought it was, okay, I need to go further in my career, so I'm going to hire a coach. I thought maybe I'm just feeling unfulfilled. I'm not challenged anymore. I have big goals. I've always been someone who likes to set big goals. I'm going to hire a coach. And I thought what I was going to get out from that experience was kind of like the secret sauce of moving to the next level of my career. But instead, I got a reality check that I was completely out of line with my values. And anyone who's ever done executive coaching or life coaching, the foundation is what's important to you as an individual. And I never thought about that before. I just thought it's an exciting career. I like to challenge myself and set goals, but I really wasn't thinking about why I was doing the things I was doing. So after kids, obviously, that big why, and we talk a lot about this in our BUFFnation programs, that big why I'm doing this, became really, really important. And after working with that coach, I realized I was out of alignment with what I was doing. So that's what started the pivot.
Wow.
I guess the reallocation of talents, I guess you can kind of say that. So, I was kind of thinking, what am I going to do? But always I had done fitness. I put myself through school by working at gyms and teaching classes. So and I loved it. I absolutely loved it. But in my mind, it was something like, okay, that's not my professional career. I'm going to be a journalist. That's what I'm going to do. So how I kind of filled that was I worked at a fitness magazine. I covered health stories, but I always had that desire to uplift, help, to learn about health. And so, that's kind of where I was.
Wow. Well, and I love how you talked about doing the values work, right? Who are you? Where do you want to focus? And absolutely, whenever I start talking to a new manager that I'm coaching, I start there. What are your values? How do you want to show up? But it's one thing to identify them, Leslie, but how'd you find the courage to pull the trigger and to
Yeah.
step into that something new?
it's funny because when I look back on it now, I think, oh my gosh, I can't believe I did that. But it actually started really innocently with, we had lived in Waterloo and we were moving to Cambridge. We were thinking, employment would be Toronto-wise, so we relocated to Cambridge. And there were gyms, but there wasn't anything that I really resonated with. That really, spoke with me. And what I found about the many gyms that I worked with over the years is I always kind of felt that many times women may be uncomfortable, not everybody, but in that situation, I was just looking for a really uplifting experience. I wasn't really finding it in Cambridge at the time. And so I decided that I was going to start a fitness class. And it wasn't like this was going to be my career. I thought, I'm going to start this fitness class. And at the time, I was learning my coaching and I was learning about mindset. And I thought, I'm going to put these two together because I think, people can learn about mindset and they can understand how they're looking at themselves. They can exercise. I think that's going to be a cool program. So I started and I rented my first space. I think I had 3 people. And then it just kind of took off, like unexpectedly, it took off because I think my passion and my values and my purpose, it was all in the right direction. I think that's what happens when you do that. So it just kind of took off. And then I had my second child and things took off even more. And I was thinking, oh my gosh, maybe this is my answer. I may not go back to work here. And I was so close to going back to work at CTV. I really, really was, because you get, if anyone's ever done a career change, you feel confident, you're going to do it. And then you get to the edge and you look down and you want to hightail it out of there, right? You know what I mean? And I was feeling that way. But then my job, the position that I had at CTV that was health, was going to switch and it was going to be hard news again. And I was like, I can't go back to that. That's my signal that it's now or I'm not going to do this, right? So I just kind of said, I'm doing it. And that's what happened. And here I am.
Wow. So I'm kind of hearing you say that you took the baby steps, right, in following your passion and moving in that direction, and it gained momentum, and it wasn't your career right out of the gate. It was the baby steps towards your passion, but still at some point you had to take the leap.
I did.
Right?
And
Yeah.
I remember the day that I sent in my resignation and I was at Walmart walking around thinking, oh my gosh, I just quit my job. Oh my gosh, my career. I was going to be on CNN. Well, what am I doing? I just quit. What am I doing? But then you realize that's ego, right? You realize it's your ego freaking out. And then you go a little deeper and you realize, okay, no, that's my true calling. It's all going to work out. It's going to be fine. So there was a little bit of up and down, but I think I had really, and I learned, from my coaching experience, to get your vision in place. So I really spent a lot of time in my vision. Even though I was still working as a news reporter and an anchor, my vision, I was just thinking of, what I wanted to do in 5 years. What did I want my life to be like? I knew I wanted to be healthy. I knew I wanted to be vibrant. I wanted to be active. And so I was really staying true to my vision. So, and trying to uplift, read a lot of personal development books. We talk to our members about, changing a program isn't easy. We are programs, right? How many years have we put our coat on the same way or tied our shoelaces the same way, right? So we have to keep giving our mindset new, exciting information every single day. And so that's what I did. I made sure to surround myself with positive, uplifting people, read a lot of good books. I did affirmations. I was really clear on the messaging that I wanted to put in my mind.
Yeah, if I could just pop in for a second. First of all, it's fascinating, and I really appreciate your journey. I love the human story, the narrative journey. That's what we're a story. We got these particles moving around and atoms and all that good stuff, but at the end of the day, we're all just a good story. And the narrative of our lives is so powerful. And so as you describe that narrative, it just really reminds me of my own journey and the journey of so many people that I've met over the years. And again, if you're listening in today, just really think about what Leslie's saying to you. Because sometimes we just we don't wake up one day and decide to get misaligned in our of what we do to our values. It's not a conscious decision, but I think it slowly happens over time as we begin to dichotomize and we pull ourselves apart, and what we do and who we are becomes fractured over time. And the idea that at some point we can sit down and recognize that and say, no, I need to be a more whole being. I need to connect my values, my passion, what is really important to me, to fundamentally what I do. That is a powerful journey. And so again, if you're at a point in your life, just ask yourself, is what you're doing aligned to who you are fundamentally and your values? And if it isn't, ask the difficult question. Are you just going to allow that dichotomy to continue to exist? Or will you make a choice? Will you press pause and say, no, I'm going to reconnect myself to the very core of who I am as a being? I think that's really critical, and I think it's an inspiring and provocative story. But most people, Leslie, as you know, when they get to that point of the journey, they don't reintegrate themselves. They continue to dichotomize, and they become this very fractured being. So again, what a powerful story, and I really appreciate it.
Yeah, and it's amazing when we ask those questions, the quality of our questions, right? We all have the answers. We just have to sometimes ask the tough questions and then be okay with what the answer is.
Yeah. Well, so you must have had a lot of things going through your mind though when you were, before you submitted your resignation, right? Like
Yes.
there was like this moment in time, but how did you prepare yourself for actually writing that letter, right? Like and did anything not work, Leslie? Like, you said this came together and it just got steam, but would you do something different?
Oh, I think my parents were questioning my sanity. um, they were, and I was so excited. And that's why when you have a dream, you got to be careful who you share those seeds with because they can stomp on them. Not that they were stomping on my seeds, they just saw how hard I had worked to get to where I was, this regular income that was coming in, bills you have to pay, and that's what they were thinking about. And so it was like this battle. But you have to really watch who you're getting the advice from, and they love and how why they're giving it to you, and they just loved me and they cared about me. So that was kind of conflict coming that way because every time I'd say it, they'd tell me why it wouldn't work. And when you're just starting something, you want to kind of know how it won't work and be a little prepared, but you can't hear that all the time, or you're not going to have the courage to take the first step.
Oh my goodness, when you're talking, because Tim mentioned at the beginning of the podcast that it hasn't been that long since I took the leap to changing
Right.
careers and right. And I can remember telling some key people, including my parents, this is what I want to do. And them not, are you sure? Are you real? What? You're giving up the steady
Because
paycheck?
they care about you, and that's all, but they're not understanding the full picture either, which you don't expect them to, but it's kind of like understanding where they're coming from.
Yeah, I think you've hit on something that, having the balance of making sure that, you're going to have some people who don't understand the journey you're on,
Yes.
right? And you're going to have that. And so then if you know that going in, it's not going to surprise you. But you need to have the balance, right? Of the other people who are going to be your cheerleaders. And for me, it was Tim. He was one of my cheerleaders, right? I know you can do this, right?
Yeah, and having those people makes all the difference. Even just to say, hey, look, you're having a bad day. It's going to pass. You're going to move on and things. It's a phase, you're going to be fine, is so helpful. But yeah, like knowing where the messaging is coming from and being careful what messaging you're letting in and who you're sharing those goals with.
Yeah, Leslie, in an earlier podcast, I've done so many, I don't even remember which one it is now, but one of the concepts I played with is, again, going back to narrative and story, is the stories we write for ourselves. And the idea I was playing with is that, at the end of the day, the paper is ours and the pen is ours, but
Yes.
sometimes we surrender it to others. We give our power, we give our pen to others, and we say, write our story.
Yes.
And what I found, I'm 56, and what I found is that whenever I've given my power and my pen to somebody else, the story they write, I'm not always the hero of. And it's not always the story that I want. So I learned a long time ago in my life that I've stopped giving the pen to others. I'm going to write my own story. If you don't like the story, fair enough, get off the wagon, not a big deal. But I'm going to take control of my life, and I'm going to write a story, not only of where I want to be, but where I want to go. And ultimately, I believe as I write that story, I become it. So this is about narrative, and it is about taking back the power. And
I like
isn't.
that. I like that.
Yeah, that's a really big part for me.
Good analogy. That's wonderful. I like that.
So you're doing that, which is cool. And by the way, I am Amanda's biggest fan, and I look really great with pom poms. Let's just put it that way, right, Amanda? Come on.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know it.
That's an image I can now not erase, Tim. Thanks.
Sorry.
And
Sorry.
you probably had people in your career when you started doing the same thing, right? So now you're just passing it on to the next, and that's what it's about, right? It's uplifting, it's motivating, all of that.
100%. No, that's a great conversation, Amanda. Sorry for interrupting. I sometimes, as my grandson says, "Papa, you interrupt." Yes, it's true. Papa, I interrupt. Go ahead, Amanda.
Well, I'm just wondering if we can follow this trail though of talking about not just specifically your parents, but you have other people in your life that are close to you, right? And so how did, let's say, your husband or your kids or like other close people around you, how were they impacted by your pivot? Not just were they your cheerleader or not, but how were they impacted by you making these changes?
Oh my gosh, my husband is the most supportive person. He like I think I would have went back to my old job if it wasn't for him. I am so grateful that he believes in me more than I believe in myself. And that
Hmm.
is so awesome to have a supportive partner. It really is. And I know not everyone will have a supportive partner. And sometimes it's not your husband. You have to find that in it's other people, right? Or even mentors or, online but that was really instrumental. And so I think he really took this on as his as well. And he was able to look at it and help me from he was still working full time. He was looking at it as he's a very creative individual. He would be able to, give me what I needed to hear at that time to kind of prop me up because we all need that, right? We have those days. And as I say, I think I would have gone back if it wasn't for him to say, no, listen, you wanted to do this, you can do this. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
and I think you've hit on something there because, and I'm not sure if this is a female thing or if this is a general thing. So Tim, you tell me what your thoughts are on this too. But I
Okay.
found that when you're stepping into that something new, you have to almost be intentional about surrounding yourself with some key partners almost,
Totally.
right?
Yes.
Like whether they're partners specifically in where you're going, but they're partnering with you and encouraging you along the way. I personally don't think I could have done it alone either. And I have some strategic partners,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
I don't know, Tim, do you think that that's a unique thing that women maybe gravitate to, or would you
Um,
agree?
no, for me, I wouldn't. I don't think it's a male or female thing. I actually think that I think it's really just again about our identity, and I think we are communal creatures. We were created for community. Our own ecosystem in our body has the sense that we're a community of different but connected tissues, organs. There's something about the power of community. And I think we all need it. Now, I think because of the stereotypes in our society, I think we probably say, well, that maybe women need more of that more than men. I don't fundamentally agree with that. I think this is a human psyche thing. When you feel alone, you feel afraid. Maybe that's not true for anybody else, but I think that's fundamentally true for most people. When you're alone and you're not sure where you're going, you feel afraid. That's a natural instinct, whether you're a child or whether you're an adult. So I think that fear comes out of that sense of the insecurities that we have about who we are, what we're going to do. And when you have another human who looks at you and can call out and see what you can't in yourself in that moment, there's something so powerful about it. Again, that you use the term belief, Leslie, and belief is one of the most powerful forces in the universe. It's transformational, but it causes people to do that which is both horrific and that which is both amazing. It's the same catalytic force. It's the power of belief. Some would call it faith, call it what you want, but there is something really transformative when we believe it's going to happen. And I often say to my grandson, and just to talk about him for a second, Jude, because I'm trying to pour into his life. And at the cottage this summer, I did this thing where I kept jumping off the dock and almost killing myself because I'm an old man now. But I kept saying to my grandson, "Do you believe? Do you believe Papa can do it?" And there was my little 4-year-old grandson at the time. "I believe, Papa. I believe." And he's on the thing. And because he believed, I did it. Even though I probably shouldn't have, because my wife said, "You're going to hurt yourself." But man, when you got a little guy in your life going, "I believe, I believe, I believe," you're in for it, man. There's something about the belief. And so your husband and others have been that for you, Leslie, and that is powerful. And it sounds like you're also that for people in your world who come to you in
Yes.
BUFFnation. When
Yeah.
they can't believe for themselves, I think you're bringing belief to them.
And I think because not everyone has that, it would be nice if everyone did, but the reality is not everyone does, but that's okay. So especially, I see that within our community. And yes, our job is, as a coach, is to believe in them because they don't believe in themselves yet, and then eventually they'll catch that momentum, right, and they'll start to believe in themselves. But you're right, it starts with that support, that community. So important. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, and maybe you've had to pivot more than once. So I met you when you first were building your Buff Mom organization, and then I watched as you evolved that when COVID hit. Some of it because of vision I think that you had, and some of it just because of what COVID did to your business, right? But was it any easier to do the second time?
It just kind of evolved, I think. It was funny because I think a transformation was happening before COVID. I was noticing within our community, being the buff mom, we were kind of limited in what we could talk about. Our membership was getting older. There were more needs for nutrition, hormones, mindset, and a lot of these things, the format and structure that we had, we just couldn't offer it. It just, we would try and it just wasn't working. So I was always kind of thinking, okay, this is, here's where I'd like to take us because I can see the need within our community. I'm not sure how that's going to go, but I was kind of thinking that. And then, of course, when we had COVID come, um, we, we were actually, we were prepared, but it wasn't planned, if that makes sense. Now I'll explain that because I was in the midst of figuring out how to offer more online programming because I was finished my nutrition specialty for culinary nutrition, and I had held some in-person events. And what I was finding with the in-person events is that they were sold out and people would want to come. There's only 20 spots and only 20 could come, and there wasn't enough supplies and there wasn't enough room, and people were learning, but it wasn't in their own kitchens, and your oven is different than someone else's oven, and all that stuff. So I was trying to think of a way to deliver this, we call it Delish by Design, this cooking program online. So I was in the process of, actually, that January I started shooting our online Delish by Design course. So I had planned, when it was done, to launch it online. So I had all the infrastructure in place, and then life started to change so suddenly. I know we're how many years out now, but you still look back and you think it's completely unbelievable. My husband, he's always the one who's the brains. He's saying, "Okay, listen, we got to have a plan. If this COVID thing gets out of the way." And I'm all about mindset. Look, I'm imaging that everything's fine. It's not going to happen. It's all going to work out. Well, we actually had a plan in place, and thankfully we did, because when that hit, we were in the midst of, was it our Spring Inch Loss Challenge? It was in the midst of our biggest challenge of the year, right? This is every year we do Spring Inch Loss Challenge, and this is what it was. And so we were able to use what we had, the infrastructure we created for Delish by Design, and just right away start offering our classes online. And we didn't know how it was going to turn out. We just knew we could do it. So that, I guess, a pivot, it kind of worked that way. And then we were able to provide classes for all those people who couldn't leave their house or go to gyms. So it worked out really, really well. But it was one of those things that it was unplanned. So if I were to look back, I would say I would definitely try to have some kind of plan in place like that. It worked out, but it's good to kind of have an alternative, if that makes sense.
It does.
Interesting.
Well, and you used a phrase though. You said you were prepared, right? So you may not have had the plan in place, but
Yes.
you had some key things. You were
Yes.
looking ahead. You were seeing the future, for some of the way you wanted your programs to evolve, and
Yes.
you were prepared. And I think that's a key piece that is, I don't want to lose in this conversation, because some of us, we just get so focused on the now, right? That if something like COVID were to hit, you're just knocked sideways. But it sounds like you were looking out.
Yeah, because we were thinking, given the change as the community was getting older, right, and we were able to our impact could be greater, and we could get to all locations, then we could do that. So it just kind of worked out that way, that we were able to make that transition. We didn't even lose a class. Like we we had COVID, everything was shut down. And the next day we didn't have to cancel classes. Like we were ready to go right online. And again, it does help that my husband has a video marketing company. We kind of know how to do that. We could probably run a newscast from the studio in our basement. We have so much stuff, but we were able to put it to good use and it all just kind of came together. Yeah.
Interesting. As you say this, you may know this quote, but Seneca, who I'll call an ancient thought leader, he'd be a thought leader today, but Seneca, in the ancient world, he's attributed to have said this: "Luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity."
Yeah.
So again, this is the way I look at it. There are people out there that are leprechauns. They're super lucky and they ride the rainbow because their preparation meets and brings opportunity. That preparation not only, I think, meets opportunity, but I think in the universe, our preparation attracts opportunity. So
Yes.
you were, in Seneca's words, you were amazingly lucky by choice. And again, if you're listening, I want to encourage you, you look at people around you sometimes and you sort of, excuse my French, but you bitch and complain because they're lucky. Listen, Seneca would say to you today, guys, luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity. Prepare to find luck. Prepare for your future. It'll find you. The law of attraction says if you prepare for it, you will fundamentally attract it and you will become a leprechaun and other people will be amazed and wonder about how it happens. But it's because you worked really hard. And then you ride the rainbow and it looks easy, but it's not so easy, is it, Leslie?
No, it's not. It's not, because behind all of that, there was scrambling, there was figuring this out. Now, I will say, something that really has helped me, and if anyone's listening, to this and kind of can relate to this, I have been a regular meditator for about 5 years now. And so, I started meditating when I lost my father. I really needed to find some balance and I knew I needed to go deeper. Anyway, started to meditate. And what I wanted to say about the meditation, I do transcendental meditation, is it's one of those things that has a cumulative effect. So had this happened when I wasn't meditating, like I think 10 years ago, and I was a stress case and I drank lots of coffee and I watched CNN, I would go probably have gone crazy. But thankfully, I was grounded and I was really focused in my meditation practice. And I was trying, and I say trying because it's not always easy, to not respond to all the chaos out there because there was a lot of noise, right? And I was trying to really just stay in my lane and focus on what I could do for me and how I could really help the community that needed my help and how I could stay calm and inspired and all of that. So I do think that also played into it as well. Like I was able to really stay connected again to my values, to my core, and my meditation practice. So I think that's been extremely helpful in all this.
So I'm hearing kind of a cool yin and yang, Leslie, because there's the surrounding yourself with the people, right? That will support you and will journey with you. And then there's also going inside for the quiet, right? And having that time to really make sure that you're connected with who you are.
Yes.
And I'm getting a sense that balance is really important, right? Having the internal grounding and having the external support in place.
Yeah, and I think when you're connected, then the external support, the correct support appears, right? When we're really clear in our values and we're really grounded and we're not freaking out. And I mean, I know it's easier said than done. I understand that. But if I can just share that experience from the meditation and how it's grounded me, yeah. And then the people who come into your life, they show up at just the right time, right? It's funny. But then I also find, when I'm off that meditation, it's very, very different. It makes such a difference to stay grounded. My day is different if I meditate versus if I don't meditate. And most days I meditate.
I'm finding that just really intriguing because even as I retrospectively kind of look back at how I transitioned careers and I'm trying to uncommodify myself, at the times when I'm unbalanced in one of those two things is when I start questioning whether I'm on the right path, whether I can do this, right? So if I'm feeling alone, Tim, your point about fear creeps in when you're feeling alone, but also when I'm not spending enough time grounding myself and reminding myself of my values, connecting with myself, for me, having a daily quiet time, right? That when either of those two things are out of sync, that's when I'm like, I don't know if I can do this.
Yeah, and one of my mentors told me this, and it has impacted my life immensely. And it was, when he's feeling overwhelmed or he's not sure what to do, he is getting out of town and not partying, but sitting there getting reconnected with himself, right? And that has made all the difference, because when I have those times, and you do have them, ups and downs, right, of having a business, it's about getting back to you, reconnecting with you, so then you can move forward authentically. That's what's helped me. Anyway, I wanted to mention that in case any of your listeners might be in that area right now. Yeah.
No, that's really helpful. And you've kind of tipped into the question I wanted to ask you about what you've learned about the process of breaking free for yourself, right? Like, is there anything that, naive Leslie, when she was still at CTV, was thinking and dreaming and moving, that you just didn't know about yourself that you've learned now?
I had no idea the power of mindset. Gosh, you know what? These kids today, and they're learning about manifesting, or they're learning about mindset and thoughts equal feelings, action. Wow, to be able to know that information so early on in life, I didn't understand that. And then when I learned it, and you realize you can really, when you learn to control your thinking, you can have impact on your results, and that's so powerful, because that means anyone can do it. So that's the one thing I would say. And I was talking to a group of college kids last week, and that's exactly what I told them. And gratitude journal is big too. Being grateful. I didn't understand the power of that. Being grateful for everything you have, and then more will come to you, rather than being in this "I'm not enough" mindset. So those are two big shifts that I didn't know back then, and wow, they have been life changing.
Wow, you know what? I resonate so much too, because when you're going to quit your quote unquote day job and the stability, and if you're just focused on what you're not going to have, that
Yes.
scarcity mindset,
Oh,
right? Of I'm not going to have a steady paycheck, or I'm not going, right? Then you are stuck. You're not going to be empowered to really move forward, unless you can flip the coin on what you're gaining, and where that gratefulness focus, right?
and that's where the vision is so important, right? Going back to the vision, and going back to the personal development and surrounding yourself with positive people, because it can be easy to talk yourself out of success, right? Right? You're going to do something, it's good for you, and then that little voice goes. But if you are maintaining that mindset, you're being quiet, you're being aware of any thought patterns and working to change them. It's really empowering.
Hmm. No, absolutely. Hey, listen, we're going to start bringing this conversation sort of in for a landing in a little bit. Amanda, is there any one last question that you'd have for Leslie? And then also, I want to make sure that Leslie gets an opportunity to let people know how they can connect with her, because I have a feeling that there's going to be a group of people who listen to this podcast who are going to say, hey, I want to connect with Leslie and what she's doing, because there's something in that for me. So again, if you're listening today, you're listening for a reason. That's what I believe. If you give us a gift of your precious time, you're never getting it back. Sorry, you don't get it back after. You can't do a redo. You're listening for a reason. So what is that reason? And if part of that reason is you need to connect with Leslie and what she's doing and what she's doing for others who could do for you, you need to do that. So just one last question for Leslie, and then let's make sure that Leslie gets an opportunity to let people know how they can track her down.
Yeah, well, really, Tim, I think it really does come back around to being uncommodified, right? And Leslie, you've talked a lot about some of the steps you've taken to step out and to be different and to not just fit into the mold, right? And I guess I'm just wondering, like, if you had advice for people who want to do that, who want to uncommodify themselves, step out, what would that look like?
I think it comes to getting in touch with your authentic self, and then you automatically stand out. If you're yourself and you're in touch with what's important to you, what it is that you're doing, you don't have to work to be different than someone, because you're just being yourself. And they can sense authenticity. So when you're connected with it, you're more confident. People are going to want to join you, be around you, ask you what you're doing, and then they're going to want to know kind of what's behind that. And then you can inspire them from that authentic place. So I think for me, that's what I've learned over the years.
That's powerful. That's powerful. Leslie, so if people wanted to connect with you, They want to look you up and see what you do and see if there's a reason for them to be connecting at this stage of their life. How would they do that? What's the best way for them to find you?
Oh, you know what? You can just go to wearebuffnation.com. Wearebuffnation.com, and wearebuffnation.com on, or We Are Buff Nation on Instagram as well.
Okay. So listen, guys, if this resonates with you and you want to hunt down Leslie, please do respond to with the thinking, the provocation that's going on in your head and your heart right now. You need to respond to that because there's something really powerful in that. And and as I think about what Leslie shared again, just about this idea of uncommodifying for her, which I think is so true, Leslie. You've quantified it and sort of codified it as this idea of it's our authentic self. I really believe that. At the end of the day, we are 99.9% the same from a chemical makeup humans, but there's this 0.01% difference, and in that lies a vast ocean of difference. The thing that makes us unique. And you're right. If we are our unique self that we were created to be, we are by nature authentic. We are authentic. We are uncommodified. We are different. We're living in the uniqueness. In the same way that, when our children are born, and you talked about your children being born and how they've been part of that journey. I have two children. I have a 32-year-old daughter now and a 28-year-old son. And I think back to the time when they were born, and they were born in a state of utter purity and uncommodified. They were totally unique in all ways to me. I think over time, unfortunately, as a parent, sometimes I parented them in a way where with a sort of a herd mentality, and I commodified them. I sort of taught them that if you want to fit in and be liked, then you got to commodify yourself. You got to be like everybody else. I've spent the last 20 years trying to undo that message in my children's lives. And I've been undoing that message in my own life because we are created in that most uncommodified state. And in that, when your baby is born, and of course, I didn't have the privilege of giving birth, but I was there when my children were born, and it was easier for me than my wife. Let's put it that way. But I tell you something, that smell that comes when you smell the top of a baby's head, that unique smell, it's the smell of pregnant possibility. It's the smell of uniqueness. It's the smell of a destiny yet to be unfolded. There's something so powerful, so pungent in that smell. The possibility is so powerful, and so many of us, that smell has been eradicated from our lives, and we now smell like everybody else. And we need to get back to that unique smell, that thing that's ours, and then we need to find a place where we can apply it. Now, sometimes I think, Leslie, like in your case, your passion pays, and sometimes it doesn't. People do what they need to do or align, and it doesn't always pay. But the fact that you can align those things together is so powerful. And so again, if you're listening in today, my encouragement to you is to really process this and think about what Leslie is encouraging you to do. Amanda, thanks for the great questions to unlock the conversation. And again, if you've listened for a reason. So do me a favor. I'm going to ask you to do me a favor. And that is this. Email me at tim@theuncommondified.com or come and check me out on social media, interact with me, and let us know, let Leslie know, let Amanda know, let myself know how you're uncorking this. This is an UNCORK conversation. Uncork this idea, pull the cork off it, and let this thing flow, the effervescence of that thing, that bubbly, flow into your lives and have a powerful effect, a redemptive effect, a challenging effect, a changing effect, whatever it is. And as you do, let us know how you're doing that in your journey. Thanks for listening. Have an excellent day.